Chapter 5 Producer Behaviors. Producer Behavior. In this video, we are going to talk about producer behaviors. From the point of view of diluting theory, the ideas that have encountered in the consumer theory carry over the very naturally into the analysis of the production. There are no fundamentally new ideas, simply old ones and slightly different guys, where the consumer can be thought of using commodities to generate utility. The production plant uses for input to generate output and thereby profit. The principal differences are follow. First, utility is derived from concept where the output is a primitive concept. Second, production theory has been able to deal with situation involving factor of many output where the consumer output utility in a scale. Finally, the precise form of objective and constant usually assumed in producer theory imply the absence of any response analogs to real-time income component of a consumer price response. The extension of many output does not greatly complicate matter if the utility is properly exploited. And two remaining feature of the production theory serve everything to simplify it. Direct or indirect production line. Let us considering the production of single homogeneous output y from the vector of the input services. A con description of the production possibility set specific the maximum attainable output as a function of input factor. Now let's know about what is production and cost analysis. Production and process can be studied empirically in terms of either production function or cost function. Estimate the parameter of this function, provide valuable insight in a technology, film, and industry. The central question relating to whether production process display decreasing constant or increasing return to skill, how technological progress affect the parameter of production process, at what rate technological progress has occurred. Estimation and interpretation of the estimate is complicated by the fact of observation on input, output, and cost reflect not only the state of technology but the economic decision made by producer and factor supply. Assumption regarding economic behavior and competition in input market often play a crucial in a statistical and not always easy to determine whether the result reveal the nature of technology or serve instead of test or validity of economic production function. The fundamental productive organization is a firm which enter into contractual arrangement in buying, transforming, and selling goods and services. The production set of firm described at a given time the possible relationship between input and output. For a single product firm, the production function describes the maximum output that can be produced from a single quantity of input. Let X donate output of physical homogeneous unit and let X and K denote the input labor and capital and homogeneous unit. Then the production function was simply X function KL. The number KL can be positive, zero, constant. They are only for a given technological function. It's normally specified as unvalued. An important practical distinction is statistical studies in between X and A, planning, production, and cost function. Decisions about the type and scale of a plant are made years before the plant is completed. Expectation before a previous years about price and output that will determine the quantity and character of a new capital employed in the current period. The ex post function is the realized relationship is one of the that normally measured in practice. If all plans and expected are perfectly realized, the ex ante and ex post function are equivalent. The most popular form of production function is for a statistical testing or coped up function, where A and alpha and which are elastic of output which present respect the capital and labor, assuming perfect competition in market for output and factor. Shall we are going with a good space? Yeah. Another form of production function often used with statistical testing in a general statistically of substitution. Distribution parameter is a non-negative scale of parameter which increase the inconvenience and take value of unit of wear. The parameter P is closely related to elasticity of substitution between capital and labor. When the elasticity of substitution approaches unity, the C function simplify the co-optical form. When the elasticity approaches zero, the C function become a Leontief type of input function. The marginal productivity condition which the C function can be extended incorporated by input, but it does not simply an extension of an case of object function. Specific estimation in estimating the parameter one may fit the other production function itself in a marginal productivity equation. Most Cobb-Douglas function studies have estimated parameter directly from logarithmically linear production function, thus leaving open an apartment test. Most CES studies have avoided fitting the nonlinear production relation, have instead concentrated on fitting logarithmic relation marginal productivity. Simulation estimate of both production and marginal productivity relation is based on difficult identification and interpretation. Cobb-Douglas form denoting logarithm file lowering case we have the production function marginal productivity relation may be interpreted by random variable affecting productive effective economic efficiency. Different interpretation however require the cross section. The restriction must be imposed on joint restriction function if there is no correlation between the sampling extension of usual method of least square or provide suitable estimate. What the empirical evidence suggests that there are factors significant correlation between technical and economic efficiency. Alternative way of analyzing the production process is to estimate the cost function, which describe cost as determined by the level of output and price of input. When the frames uses the most efficient technique, if the perfectly competitive marginal productivity condition are substituted in the Hope-Douglas production function, we obtain the cost function. Okay, which is linearly logarithmic of the factor price and output. Most empirical studies of the cost has been concerned with measuring of the variation of C and X and not with estimating the effect of the factor price on C. It is clear, however, that if factor price to change, there is opportunity to measure the coefficient of the production function by regression cost on factor price and output. Cost function, although apparently more useful than production function because of the ability of accounting data, are often more intractable owing to difficult the cost function reflect not only technological condition of production but also competitive consumption in factor. If, for example, the business is faced with a rising supply curve of labor, the parameter of that supply curve will answer as a determinant of the cost. In addition, one does not escape the simulation equation difficulty referred to the time series estimate. The production function cost function of the frame can be measured by observing the frame as it reacts different stimuli such as changes in related factor and output prices. The time series of observation will produce variation in output and input. The cost and cost function are traced. Their observation will usually generate the short run production cost relation, very short or monthly observation, and what may be called an intermediate run production function for annual observation. The main difficulty with this type of study is sample dynamic adjustment process, a mixture of factor price movement, technological change, and extinguished stock. One cannot be sure that one has identified a statistical function or cost function. Most time of the series studies of frame has been concentrated in form of cost function. Accounting data are adjusted for some effect. Usually the cost of management or direct work cost. But sometimes cost has been used. The difficult for accounting data and the unit price is longer than a short. Anyway, the valuation of the stock capital and depreciation is usually conventional and based on the requirement of tax law. Studies vary according to their success in dealing with their problem. The general result is, however, reasonably clear. Marginal cost is a constant and even declining over the range of output recorded in statistical study. There is no striking evidence of sharply rising marginal cost. Close sequentially of this result reveal the some can be explained by the fact that output level was sharply low relative to the size of the land. There does remain, however, evidence of excess capacity of certain industry cross-section estimate toward the problem of technological and other change over time. Researchers frequently observation on number of time of frame, particularly a cross-section sample variation in input and output from one frame to another provide the raw material of cross-section estimate. Differences in size of frame can also have normally persisted for long, and cross-section results are usually interpreted as long relationship. The main difficulty with cross-section analysis, however, it is competitive market that there is no separate and quantitatively different stimulus for each frame. The successful cross-section studies household is measuring incomes and is due to the fact that each household has different income which generate different expenditure pattern. But this is not the businesses in competitive and for firm and competitive market prices are some throughout the record, perhaps due to accidental influence or especially non-exchangeable input the entrepreneurship. There is no variation in factor price relation ratios to generate various in relative factor input, and observed difference in factor input are caused by difference in production function, and the observation do not identify a particular production function. Similarly, the cost function in perfectly competitive cross section shows that the average cost or is measured by the price are constant over the sample over the sample. If measured cost of deducting entrepreneurial reward, one would find how these reward per unit of unit output varied over the production of film. Nothing can be reduced over the variation in cost of representing film expand its output. Constant cost curves in a cross section may be evidence of competition rather than constant return of scale. The criticism does not apply to studies of films in isolated factor of goods market or instances where the implication and factor and output market where the level of output is controlled exogenously by government agency. In these cases, there is some opportunity for measuring the production or cost function when the production relationship measured directly and quantities of input and output are used. The result should be approximate the underlying production function. But in measuring marginal productivity condition, the cost function, the parameter of the supply curve factor must be known. One can calculate the production function or cost product function parameter with international or in some cases inter-regional cross section. It's something reasonable to specify both separate factor or good market or competitive condition in each. In this circumstance, a cross section may be given observation which are suitable for estimating production function. Yeah, we have go over 13 minutes. Now let's read about the type of market structure. As we seen in economics, the definition of market has been wider, very wide scope. Sure, understanding all marketing, all the same similar can be characterized market structure based on the competition level or nature of this market. Let us study for basic type of market structure. Type of market structure, a variety is what it does you want to say. What type of market, a variety of the market structure will characterize an economy. Such market structure is refer to the degree of competition. There are the determinants of market structure, such as nature of the good or product of the similar sales, number of consumer, nature of the product or service, economic size. We will discuss the four basic type of market structure in economy. One thing to remember is that not all type of market structure actually exist. Some of them are just theoretical concept, but they help to understand the principle behind the classification of market structure. Perfect competition. In the perfect competition market structure, there is large number of buyers and sellers. All the sellers of the market are small sailors and compete with each other. There is no big sailors are significant influence on the market. So all of them such market are price takers. There are certain assumption when discussing the perfect competition. This is reason perfect competition market is pretty much theoretical concept. These assumptions are as follow: the product on the market are homogeneous. They are completely identical on the frame. Only have a motive of profit maximization. There are free entry and exit of a market. There are barriers, and there is no concept of consumer preference. Monopolistic competition. There is more realistic scenario that actually occur in real world. The monopolistic competition. There are still large number of buyers and as well as sellers do not share homogeneous products. Their product are similar, but the sellers sell slightly different products. Oh no, oligopoly. Oligopoly. There is many film in the market while there are no creative or the film number of film. Consider the norm. So in the case of oligopoly, the buyers are far greater than the share. Monopoly. Market there are only one seller or single firm will control the entire market, so it's at the price of the wishes, it's market power. That's it for the video, we'll meet you next one.